All right, Genesis 25:26. So last week we saw God's hand in guiding Rebekah to Isaac, remember? And Rebekah becoming his wife. And then the mantle gets passed from Sarah to Rebekah. So this week we're going to see the other side of it. We're going to see the mantle passed from Abraham to his son Isaac. Okay? So I want you to kind of remember to see these stories in context, so we have those kind of mirror stories here. We have Rebekah and Sarah, and then we have Abraham and Isaac right behind each other. Okay? So chapter 25, we're going to read verse 1. Abraham took another wife. That's when you can gasp at that moment.
I've never read that.
Yes! All of us go, he just had Sarah.
Third time study of Genesis.
Abraham took another wife. His name?
Mary.
I know, but remember his wife is dead, and Hagar is in Egypt, so he has to take another wife. Because for those of you who were in our 8 o'clock service, we learned that it's not good for man to be alone.
That's
okay.
Even if you are 100 and...
Right?
100
plus.
He's like old.
He's old. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. We're gonna talk about how old
Yeah, but he's
in a
rich.
minute.
Very
rich. Daddy Abraham is very rich.
Okay.
Very rich. Alright, so Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah, and she bore him, and then you have a list of the sons that she bore him. That's 6 in total, y'all. Okay? So how many sons does Abraham have?
A lot.
He has 8. He has 8 sons. That is not many, but he does have 8 sons.
That's
Okay.
not many.
That's not very many.
Okay.
8 sons. Alright, so we skip down to verse 4. The end of verse 4 says, all these were the children of Keturah. Abraham gave all he had to Isaac. So it's kind of interesting that we hear about all these sons, and then it kind of shifts and says that Abraham gives all that he has to Isaac, verse 6. But to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts, and while he was still living, he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the east country.
Okay, but concubines?
Concubines, so we're talking about Hagar and Keturah. That means that she was previously a
There weren't other
concubine,
ones.
not that we know of, that she kind of got a promotion to wife after Sarah died. So yeah, this is the only time we hear about her. We have no idea where she's from. We have no idea how she came to be part of this family. All we get is that she got promoted from concubine to wife. Okay, so technically Abraham had 3 women in his life. He had Sarah, he had Hagar, and Keturah. Okay, so he sends them all away. Verse 7. These are the days of the years of Abraham's life, 175. Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age. An old man, in case you didn't know, he's very old, and full of years, and was gathered to his people. Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, east of Mamre, the fields that Abraham purchased from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with Sarah his wife. After the death of Abraham, God blessed Isaac his son, and Isaac settled at Bela-Rahoi. Okay, so after Sarah's death, we get this promotion of concubine to wife, and she ends up having 6 sons. And we see this building of relationships. Okay, so God is not done with Abraham quite yet, even though the promised son is born. And then we had Ishmael and all those issues. He blesses Abraham continually by making him a father of nations, plural, nations. Okay? So Abraham, even though he has all of these sons, he gives everything to Isaac. So he's literally passing on the baton, all of the promises that God has given him, onto his son Isaac, honoring the covenant line that God had chosen. But he still makes room to bless all of his children. Okay, so he gave them gifts, he blessed them and made them wealthy, but he gave everything to Isaac, distinguishing him from everyone else. Okay, so at 175, Abraham dies. And now it's up to Isaac to carry on his father's line. And we're going to see just how he does that. Okay? Verse 12. These are the generations of Ishmael. Okay? Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's servant, bore to him. Okay? And then we have the list of all of Ishmael's people. Down to verse 16. These are the sons of Ishmael and their names by their villages and by their encampments. 12 princes according to their tribes. These are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. He breathed his last, and he died and was gathered to his people. They settled from Rivalry to Shira, which is opposite Egypt in the direction of Assyria. He settled over against all of his kinsmen. Okay, so we get kind of like this little mini genealogy of what happens to Ishmael after he gets sent away. We're told that he has 12 sons and they do become princes, fulfilling the promise that God gave Abraham. Remember, he begs for Ishmael to be the chosen one, to be the one who fathers the nations. And he says, no, but I will bless Ishmael. So this is a fulfillment of God blessing Ishmael and creates 12 princes, okay? But Ishmael only lasts 137 years old, okay? And all of his family is kind of more leaving Egypt and moving up into Assyria, okay? So they're kind of moving away from Ishmael, which is exactly what Abraham asked them to do. Kind of moved away, okay? All right, so one more story, and then we're going to talk about our timeline. Verse 19, these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah. Remember how we talked about the story last week? We weren't quite sure how old Isaac was. We're told he was 40 when he took Rebekah. The daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padanaram, the sister of Laban, in case you forget whose sister she is, because we're going to talk about Laban again, okay? The sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her, and all the moms said amen. And she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? She went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples from within you shall be divided, and the one shall be stronger than the other, the older shall serve the younger. When her days to give birth were complete, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak, and they called his name Esau, which means red. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. How would you like to give birth that way, ladies? So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So how long did they wait? 20 years before the boys were born. When the boys grew up, Isaac was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And we hear the dun 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 because there's a lot more story.
Having a favorite kid goes way back.
Having a favorite kid goes way back to Genesis, yes. And we're going to see the consequences of those decisions for sure. All right, so Isaac and Rebekah wait 20 years for a child, and when Rebekah finally conceives, it's a very difficult pregnancy for her. She just doesn't understand why this is happening. And it's very interesting that she is the one who goes and inquires of the Lord, not the man who's supposed to be the speaker, God's prophet, the one who's resting everything on. She's the one who goes and inquires of the Lord. So we're not sure exactly what this means. She could have gone to one of the altars that Abraham built, or maybe she just quietly prayed. We're not exactly sure. But she goes out of her way to ask the Lord what is going on, and the Lord answers her. He speaks to her, not through her husband, not through somebody else. But the Lord actually answers her and tells her and gives her a prophecy. There are 2 kids, there are 2 boys in your womb, and they're going to be divided for their entire lives. And actually, the older is going to serve the younger. Okay? And this is started with Ishmael and Isaac. Okay? Remember, Ishmael was born first, and then Isaac, and God went like this. We're going to continue to see this theme over and over and over again in Genesis. Okay?
Is this the first time where he speaks to a woman directly, instead
We had
of
Hagar, so he spoke directly to Hagar when he was telling her. Yeah. And we had
when he took okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
actually twice to Hagar. So,
Okay.
Yeah. But it's very interesting that we hear that the Lord is speaking to the wife. Because we always assume that he only talked to the guys and they had to get the information secondhand, but he shows up right here and tells her this is what is going on. Okay? So when Jacob and Esau were born, they're already marked by contrast and competition even before they're born. And Jacob, though younger, will carry the promise, and Esau will find it very difficult to live with what he has. Okay? So, verse 29, once Jacob was cooking stew, so we're just talking about a random story here to show you the division between these two guys. Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field and he was exhausted. So apparently he did not have good luck that day of catching whatever he went to go out to hunt to catch. And Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted. Therefore his name was called Edom, which also means red. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. Esau said, I am about to die. What use is a birthright to me? Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Okay? So it shows us right here where Esau's priorities were. He was about filling his stomach. He was about the here and now and the surviving. Okay? While Jacob was thinking long term. He was planning for the long term here, and he was kind of taking advantage of his brother. Okay? So we're told about these two different boys. Isaac is, it says dwelling in tents, so that means he was probably a shepherd. He was a nomad moving around with the sheep, and it kind of makes sense that Rebecca loves him and is the favorite child, because where does she come from? She comes from a family who raised sheep. She probably raised sheep. Abraham raised sheep. And Isaac raised sheep. So she's like, oh, Jacob is like us. Versus Esau, who's this big, giant, hairy, red guy, and he wants to go hunting. So he leaves the family and goes hunting all the time, and he follows the herds and goes hunting. Okay? So we do see this dynamic, and we're going to see it continually play out through the rest of Genesis between these two families. But let's talk about Abraham's timeline real quick, because I want to show you something very interesting. Okay? So we're going to map out Abraham's timeline. So Abraham is 75 when Abraham is told by God to leave Haran. Okay, so remember his family left Ur at some point, but we're not told exactly, probably just a couple of years, but we know he's 75 when he leaves Haran. Okay, at 86, Ishmael is born by Hagar. Okay? Because Sarah is barren. At 100, Isaac is born. Okay, by Sarah. Alright. And then sometime between probably 102 to 105, when we have Isaac's weaning, that is when Ishmael is set away. Okay, so somewhere in there, we're not exactly sure, but somewhere in there. And then when Abraham is 137, Sarah dies. His wife Sarah dies. Okay, and we know that he was 140 when Isaac and Rebecca get married. Okay, and when he is 160, Esau and Jacob are born. So he got to see the birth of Esau and Jacob. And then at 175 is when Abraham dies. Okay? So between 137 and 75 is when he marries Keturah and has 6 sons. And it actually tells us that Abraham sees his 3rd generation of her children. So it's kind of interesting here. Or at least that we know that she has at least 3 generations. But what's really interesting, so this is 38 years that he spends with this other family here. But what's really interesting is that when we find out the boys' ages here, at the time that Abraham dies, Ishmael is 89, Esau and Jacob are 15, and Isaac, at the time that his father dies and passes down the mantle to him, is 75. When Abraham had the mantle picked up. His son, at the exact same age, gets the mantle handed to him. That's what's really interesting when you map it all out. through Abraham's life what God is doing here. Okay? And we have 1, 2, 3 nations from our father Abraham. So God really did fulfill his promise here through Abraham. He makes him the father of nations. And at the right time, he calls his son to take over the mantle. Okay?
What are the nations?
So we have Ishmael is part Egyptian, is mostly Egyptian, and part moves up to like Assyria. So we think that's kind of where the Assyrians and stuff, they kind of intermingle there. We have Isaac, which is Middle Eastern, and the Jews, and then Keturah's family goes eastward. So kind of the same thing. But they kind of spread out away from Isaac and the Canaanites and things like that. So then they go intermarry with all of these different areas. Because remember, we have sons here, so we're going to have to get wives from the other nations.
Many wives.
So many wives. They're going to have to intermarry with some of these other nations.
I mean, these nations are only having a bunch of boys.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, a bunch of what?
Very
Boys.
bunch of boys.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's Abraham's life. So now we put Father Abraham in the grave. He is now resting with his wife Sarah in the cave of Machpelah, the only land that he ever owned a tomb. Okay. So now there are 2 occupants in the tomb, but that's not the end of the story. Okay. So let's see chapter 26 here. Chapter 26. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that is in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. Yes, hear the suspenseful music. We've been here before. And the Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land in which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands. I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of the heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So Isaac settled in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, what do you think? What do you think Isaac's gonna say about his wife?
She's my sister.
He said, "She is my sister." For he feared to say, "my wife," thinking, lest the man of this place should kill me because of Rebekah, because she was attractive in appearance. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah, his wife. We're going to talk about what that means in a minute. So Abimelech called Isaac and said, "Behold, she is your wife. How could you say she is my sister?" And Isaac said to him, "Because I thought lest I die because of her." Abimelech said, "What is this that you have done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich, and he gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells of his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." Okay, so let's pause there. Have we read this story before?
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
Abraham did it twice in his life, okay? So Isaac is facing a famine, and he's kind of tempted to leave where he is. And God says, he kind of moves back towards the Philistine territory, and God says, if you stay here in Canaan, I'm going to bless you. And he reaffirms all of the things that he told his father Abraham, okay? You are the chosen one. You don't have to worry. I'm going to take care of you. Just do as I say. But eventually fear takes over Isaac's life, just like it did in Abraham's life, and he lies through his teeth about his sister because this isn't even a half-truth. Y'all, they're second cousins. They're not even half siblings like Abraham and Sarah, okay? So a complete and utter lie to save his own skin, because he's like, my wife is hot. These guys are gonna kill me and take her if they find out that she's my wife, okay? I'm the only one standing in the way here. So his sin is eventually exposed, and it's interesting the way it's exposed. We get that they were laughing together, because Isaac means laughter. And a lot of your translations maybe say sporting. Y'all, they were making out.
Mine says caressing.
Caressing?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were full on making out. A lot of PDA going on there. Okay. And the king was like, aha. Oh, really? You treat your sister like that? Yeah. He goes, you lied. I know that's your wife. Okay. So he lies, just like his father, and just like his father, the king rebukes him. This pagan king rebukes him and sends him away. So we see that even with struggling with fear and faith, it's all over this family. And it's going to come to a head a lot in this family. Okay? So, despite his previous failure, God still blesses him. He reaped in the land and reaped 100-fold. Okay? 100-fold. Still, God still blesses him and makes him rich and even more wealthy for all of this. And then there's some contention with the people of the land, because when Abraham died, they stopped up all of Abraham's wells because they didn't want Isaac to stay there among them because of everything that's going on. So they're like, well, if he can't get water, he has to move on. And so there's this contention going on, okay? So let's continue reading about what happens in verse 17. So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of the water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped up after the death of Abraham. And he gave them the names that his father had given him. But when Isaac's servants dug the well in the valley and found their well of spring, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, the water is ours. So he named the well Esek, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over also. And he said, this is Siddah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called the name Rehoboth, saying, for now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you, and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake. So he built an altar there, and called on the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. Okay? So Isaac is moving around, he's redigging all of these wells of his father. He starts to find new sources of water, but the problem is he's on Philistine territory. And so they're fighting him, claiming that the wells actually belong to them. And so that's where all this contention is coming from. Every time he's digging this new well, they're going, oh no, that was ours, because it's on our territory. It doesn't really belong to you. You're just here as a visitor, okay? So he finally finds one area that they don't fight over. So we're not sure exactly why, but they don't pick a fight over this well, and he's able to stay there. But then he eventually continues to move on and goes to Beersheba, and we get that the Lord appeared to him and reaffirms him again. And it's interesting that God is talking in the present tense when he's talking about his father. He says, I am the God of Abraham, and I will multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake. So we get this confirmation that Abraham is with the Lord, and that he is saying, yeah, Abraham was obedient to me. If you walk in obedience too, you're going to carry the promise. Okay? All right. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzzath, his advisor, and Phicol, the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me, and have sent me away from you? They said, we see plainly that the Lord has been with you. So we said, let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you and have not done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. In the morning they rose early and exchanged oath, and Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed in peace. That same day Isaac's servants came to him and told him about the well that they had dug, and said, we have found water. And he called it Shibboth. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, he took Judith, the daughter of Beer the Hittite, to be his wife, and Basmath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. Okay? So Isaac's neighbors, who are kind of opposing him and trying to force him away, now they want to come to him for a peace treaty because they see, listen, you're really getting blessed here. We don't want you to be our enemy. Okay, we don't want you to come against us, so we want to have a peace treaty here. Okay, and this echoes what happened earlier with Abraham. The Philistines started seeing how blessed Abraham was, and they wanted to make a pact with him also. Okay, and God keeps blessing Isaac to where even these pagans see, yeah, your God is really with you. Okay, you are truly blessed of the Lord. But peace with your neighbors doesn't always mean peace at home. And we get this little tidbit about Esau, that when he's 40 years old, he takes not one, but 2 wives from the Hittites that are the foreign Canaanites, and we are told that they make life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. So we have this contention happening in this family even more so. And it stands to reason that because they're pagans, they're going to worship differently, they're going to believe different things, they're going to have different cultures. And this just brings absolute sorrow to Isaac and Rebekah, that one of their sons has decided to go his own way and do his own thing and not wait for what the Lord has for him. Okay, so this is going to set up even more contention in this family between these 2 brothers. We're going to talk more about that next week. So chapters 25 and 26 show us just real people with real struggles. We see Abraham finish his race in faith. Isaac kind of do some stumbling along the way. In the first couple of years, he's got the baton, but he eventually receives God's blessing. We see Rebekah and her waiting and her praying and having her prayers answered. But we see Esau trade the eternal for the immediate. But through it all, we see God faithfully fulfilling his promise, no matter what happens to the people and no matter what choices they make.